Hello everybody, my name is Chris Daniel, the third step guy, minus whiskers. I've got a clean face today. And today I'm going to show you what I've learned is addiction and how addiction works. There's many different thoughts about addiction, and many people have been trained in different ways and or have learned things. What I've learned is not just from education, but working with, I don't know, probably close to 1,000 addicts, alcoholics. And when I say that, I mean confirmed alcoholics, addicts in terms of in a residential treatment venue. So these are not people I saw in my counseling office. This is at the treatment centers that I have worked at. And as I have shown this model to them, I've never really had any of them say, no, that's not how it works for me. So this is a tried and true, to me, understanding based on lots of anecdotal persons, real lives, as well as, again, it fits in with some of the addiction thoughts out there in terms of chemical addiction, but many of those are incomplete. And so let us just get started. I came up, my name for my chemical addiction model, I call it the four-headed beast. And of course, the four-headed beast is a disease concept model in terms of addiction. I do believe that it is a disease. But let's take a look at those four parts. The four parts first, I'll just go through them very quickly, is something called the obsession, something called craving, something called euphoric recall, something called isolation. In terms of obsession, let's talk about that for a minute. That has to do with the reward pathway and how the reward pathway works. There's several different things that it does, but it is key to our survival. And if you think of your mind as a radar screen, so on the picture of your radar screen of your mind right now might be, oh, gee, I hope Chris doesn't talk too long because I want to go get some coffee. Or, I need to make a phone call. Oh, great, there's that TV show that's coming on. So let's say those are some of the things you're thinking about. But let's say then you walked outside by your pool and your dog jumped on, you fell into the pool and you went glub, glub, glub to the bottom of a 10-foot pool, got your foot stuck in the drain grate of that pool. So maybe in the first 10, 15 seconds, underwater, you're still thinking about, oh, glub, I sure would glub like some coffee, and oh, glub, I'm missing that TV show. But 75 seconds underwater, what are you thinking about? You're no longer thinking about coffee. You're no longer thinking about the TV show. In fact, what happens is you are now thinking, and actually you're not even thinking about it, you are now obsessing for air. How the reward pathway works is when you need something for survival, such as air, water, and food, anything and everything on your radar screen of your mind is wiped off that radar screen, and all that's left on that screen of your mind is that thing that you need for survival. And in this case, it's air. So now imagine that that's the mechanism that's working against you as it relates to addiction. Because in addiction, your reward pathway sees your drug, sees your alcohol like air, necessary for survival. So when we talk about obsession in addiction, that's what we're talking about. The obsession that you have for air at the bottom of a pool, say 75 seconds on run. When you are up and running in your addiction, that is the obsession that you have for your drug, your alcohol. To your reward pathway, it is like air. I have got to have it, and I will do whatever I need to do to get it. And so in terms of this four-headed beast model, this is the first head. And in terms of if that head had a voice, the voice would just simply be, in the beginning, it's I want, and then I'm going to cross a threshold, and it becomes I need my drugs, my alcohol. And this is a very horrendous thing to be caught in. So that's the first part. In terms of the craving piece, in terms of this craving, this is the genetic piece in addiction. About 15 to 20% of the general population of the United States has this gene that when I use a mood-altering substance, sooner or later, when it turns on, it's going to produce a desire for more of that chemical, more of that alcohol. In terms of this craving piece, in fact, this craving is 3 to 10 times greater than any food craving you've ever had. In fact, it is 3 to 10 times greater even than the sexual urge to merge. It is beyond your willpower to say no to. So in terms of this craving, if it had a voice, this head, if it had a voice, the voice would simply be, want more of that drug, of that alcohol that I was using. I'm hearing my pups outside. And so this obsession right here, this obsession, this is the problem of addiction. But this craving, this is the monster of addiction. This is one drink, one shot. This is a whole pint later. This is one line of cocaine. This is an 8-ball later. These two together right here is what is unique about a true alcoholic addict. This is not what's happening with a normie who says, you might say, has that drinking problem, meaning he is abusing drugs, abusing alcohol. Because you can have people side by side doing the same amount, but it's not the amount that they're doing, it is the dynamics underneath what they're doing that determines are they a true addict, alcoholic or not. Now this next piece, this is the piece to me that's eating people's lunch. Say they go to treatment and they get out and you've got this obsession. Maybe it's lessened something. Maybe the craving with a good detox has been turned off. But this euphoric recall, this to me is what just drags everybody back into addiction. What euphoric recall is, that's about memory. And how memory works is based on, and think about memory as being like a Walmart parking lot. So there's a plug for Walmart. And so in terms of that parking lot, how individual memories get parked in that parking lot is based on the emotional intensity of the memory, as well as, of course, the repetition of the memory. And so what happens is these euphoric remembrances, these great highs that we get in terms of the drugs and alcohol that we use, what happens, those memories, they're so positively intense that they get parked front row, front space. So what happens is those memories become highly accessible. And so in terms of euphoric recall, if you think about it as a third head in the four-headed beast of addiction, euphoric recall, basically, if it had a voice, it would be this. It's drugs, alcohol is my best friend. So what's happening is I'm not remembering all of those legal consequences of my using. I'm not remembering the relationships I've blown up. I'm not remembering the job losses. I'm not remembering the health problems. What I'm remembering as life is happening is that my drugs and my alcohol is my best friend. Example, let's say I'm happy. Well, what happens with euphoric recall, it's like it finds a memory that ties into happiness and it's like boom. And it's like, hey, don't you remember? Do a little cocaine and you'll be happier. Or let's say you're sad. Well, that memory, it'll find a memory where you were sad and you use and it'll go, oh, don't you remember when you're sad? Just, take a shot of this and it'll soothe your soul. Or let's say, you're in the life situation of just being angry. So as you're angry, what happens is the filer of your memory will find a similar memory where you use, and it goes, oh, don't you remember? When you're angry, do some bars of like Xanax, and it'll numb that baby out. So again, what I remember in the moment is that drugs and alcohol is my best friend. It takes care of me, not sometimes, it takes care of me all the time. I'm not guessing that's going to change my mood. I have great faith. I know it will change my mood. And so euphoric recall, to me, this is one of the biggest problems in addiction that is, you might say, underreported or not discussed as much as it needs to. Then finally, this piece here, isolation. Well, this is sort of a behavioral piece, but let's look how this plays out. People wonder, well, why are all these people, just leaving, they're withdrawing, they prefer isolation over people. Well, let's go back up to the obsession for a minute. If you think that, people's drug of choice, their alcohol, is like air, necessary for survival, so you're going to do whatever you need to do to get your air. Well, what would you do if people came up and had bags and put bags over your head and started cutting off your air supply? What would you do? Of course, you'd fight them off, and then they'd come back and do it again. Put bags over your head, cutting off your air supply. I mean, would you hang out with those people? Heck no. Man, you'd be running for isolation. And so what happens for people who are using, other people are hindrances to them breathing their air. Their air, though, is meth, or it's heroin, or it's alcohol, or it's weed, because their reward pathway, remember, their reward pathway sees those things like air necessary for survival. So again, isolation is much preferable. And so it's just me and the drug. That's what it's all about. And so anybody that stands in my way, it's like somebody standing in the way of you breathing, and you will fight them off and you will run away from them. So in terms of isolation, think of it again, the four-headed beast, if isolation had a head, the voice of isolation would simply be that people are the problem. And drugs and alcohol, I bet you already know, is the solution. And so there you have it. That is the four-headed beast of addiction. When I have worked with, I still do in the place where I work in terms of a treatment center, I have found this matches people's experience. It also matches some of the research that's out there. And many of the addiction models, what they're doing is they're talking about this, but they're not talking about all of it. They don't talk about it as all together. People talk about just the obsession or just the craving. But all of this makes up chemical addiction. And so in terms of this, as you can see, this is much more than a behavioral problem. This truly is a disease. It has behavioral components, psychological components, but all of it together, it is a masterful trap from the kingdom of darkness to enslave people. But anyway, that's it for today. My name is, again, Chris Daniel, 3rd Step Guy. If you like this, be sure and push the like button down there. Become a subscriber. And again, this right here, you can find more about me in this at 3rd Step Counseling.com. That's my website. And we're here for you. We're here for all those addicts, alcoholics, families dealing with this problem. We're trying to get you information to help you and or your family members get free of this addiction and find recovery. Because recovery is real, recovery is doable. But what we've got to understand is how addiction works before we can beat it. So here are the four heads of addiction. As we cut all these heads off, that's where freedom is. But these heads, like the mythical dragons of the past, If we don't stay on top of it, the heads will grow back. All right, well, that's Chris Daniel, Third Step Guy, signing off. You guys have a great one. I bless you, and I thank you for this time. And just remember, Third Step Guy, Chris Daniel, I am for you, and you too can overcome. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a higher power. It's going to take many little things, but we're going to put it out there for you so that everything you need, you got. I love you. I bless you. And just stay in the saddle, man. You can beat this thing, although you won't beat it by yourself. But as you get the plan, you can beat this too. Again, I love you, and God bless you. And just right now, I pray for everybody out there, God. I ask you to give them the wisdom and the insight that they need to get to the next place in their life. And for those who are struggling right now, I ask you to just give them somebody right now, bring to remembrance somebody to call that can help them get to the next step of freedom from this thing called addiction. Again, I bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.